There are regions in the galaxy where sound doesn't travel, not because there's no medium, but because space itself seems to refuse to carry memory. These voids are rare. Vast, empty sectors where drift wrecks go untouched and no rescue ever arrives. We, the Rayari, catalogued them as dark hollows, zones that devour signal, where probes vanish and expeditions return half of what they sent out, if at all. And yet, from one such void, we received something impossible, a signal, human, fragile, singing. We weren't expecting melody. The transmission came as a whisper, narrow band, frayed around the edges, distant in frequency but unmistakably emotional. A woman's voice, not pleading, not desperate, but soft, familiar, as though she were comforting someone, as though she were not alone, or perhaps refusing to accept that she was. The song looped every 13.2 seconds, a lullaby with no name, no words, just a hum, followed by static, followed by silence that felt too personal to be just data. I was aboard the Caroline, a long-range Rayari Explorer-class vessel. We were 2 rotations past our mission deadline and preparing for hyperfold when the anomaly triggered our passive sensors. The coordinates placed it in Sector Juno 9. That region was marked Red 7, high risk, gravitational instability, failed colony zone. No known habitable installations remained. Earth's diaspora logs listed the area as abandoned after the Second Terraform Wars. Yet the signal endured. Commander Saval didn't even ask. He just said, "We're going in." Maybe because we're explorers, maybe because we're fools. When we arrived, what we found wasn't a ghost beacon or data remnant. It was a station. Full structure. Human architecture, though distorted. The outer ring was cracked. Parts of the hull appeared melted, as if scorched by something not quite natural. Yet other sections were pristine, not repaired, just untouched by decay, as though time had skipped those parts entirely. It hung in a binary orbit between 2 dying stars, a gravitational pocket that should have shredded any structure decades ago, and yet it was intact, waiting. There were no running lights, no response to hails, no transponder ID. The nameplate on the dorsal spine was scorched beyond recognition. But when we neared to 40 clicks, it came alive. Not in the way human tech usually does, no startup sequence, no warm-up cycle, just light. Subtle flickers from interior bulkheads. And then, one by one, porthole lights on the central spine blinked, in rhythm. To the hum, we crossed the threshold, expecting cold metal and dead air, but instead we were met with warmth. Not literal warmth. The ambient temperature was well below comfort for either human or Rayari biology, but something deeper, a sensation, the kind that doesn't come from measured data, but from instinct. The walls here weren't just old, they were weary, scratched, marked, not by tools or time, but by hands, desperate, repeated, human hands. The corridor ahead curved gently leftward, lined with flickering strips of half-buried LED panels that struggled to maintain some kind of functional rhythm. Every third step, a light blinked awake, only to fade again, as if the station couldn't decide whether it was alive or dead. It was Jaina who first noticed the message. Etched low on the wall in a human's hurried scrawl, "She watches when you forget her." We all paused. The translation took a moment to settle, but its weight dropped immediately. None of us spoke. Even Commander Esval remained silent. He was not a being easily unsettled. He had walked through the vacuumed hulls of plague ships, decoded last transmissions from colonies gone mad in isolation, and stood calmly in the breach of ancient black hole ruins. But now he simply stared at the words, jaw tight, fists clenched behind his back. Our xenotech Vol reached out to analyze the wall, but the surface rejected his tool. Not in the physical sense. Nothing shorted out, no sparks, no anomaly. But his device simply turned off. Dead. Not malfunctioning, disabled, as if the wall had made a choice. Then, the humming started again. But closer now. No longer an ambient frequency bleeding through structure and memory. This time, it vibrated through our own bones. Personal. The woman's voice, still humming, but with an edge, a tremble. Like she had started to cry but refused to let it show. The sound was no longer confined to the walls. It was inside us. Each of us heard it differently. Jaina later said it reminded her of her mother's final words. Vol heard the lullaby from his firstborn's cradle. I heard my sister. Long dead, years before we'd even made first contact with humans. And yet, the tune, it was unmistakably hers. We moved on, cautiously, deeper into the heart of the station. The further we went, the more human the structure became. Posters still clung to walls in some sections, motivational slogans, maintenance diagrams, faded portraits of Earth cities long erased by fire or sea. A cracked tablet lay on the floor, its battery somehow still pulsing weakly. I picked it up. Its screen flickered with one repeating message. She remembers you. We reached the central chamber, or what remained of it, a mess hall. Chairs overturned, trays fossilized in mold, walls stained with patterns I dared not name. And above it all, a speaker, ancient, rusted, yet still wired, from which the lullaby now played louder. Full volume. No lyrics, just that same hum, rising and falling, as though whoever sang it had no need for words anymore. Then came the whispers. Not from the speaker, from the air. Indistinct, fragmented. Male, female, child, alien, human. Hundreds of voices, layered, intersecting, overlapping, like the station had been recording its own grief for decades and was now releasing it all at once. The lights dimmed. Our suits registered pressure shifts with no atmospheric breach. Gravity warped slightly, like something massive had passed above us, unseen. Then, with a sound like tearing silk, the temperature dropped 12 degrees. And something laughed. Not mocking, not evil, just lonely. That was when we realized. This station wasn't haunted. It was grieving. And now that we were here, it had someone to grieve with. Descending into sub-level A felt like being swallowed. The spiral corridor leading down was narrow, rusted at the edges, with each step creaking under our weight, though we moved silently. Our Rehyari suits designed to float across most surfaces without sound. But here, on this station, even silence had a sound, and it was always listening. The stairwell was lined with remnants of panic, an overturned stretcher with straps torn loose, scattered shoes, not pairs, just singles, as if people had run too fast to notice what they'd left behind. And the walls, they weren't clean. Not just dust or decay, they were scratched, clawed, not by tools or weapons, but by nails, human or otherwise, long trails etched in curved desperation, as if whoever was trapped here had tried to leave a message with their fingertips. But no letters, no language, just fear. I remember looking at my crewmates. Their expressions were unreadable behind their visors, but their posture betrayed everything. Shoulders stiff, breath steady but unnaturally forced. Each of us was hearing the lullaby now in a different key, personalized, rewritten. Mine had grown slower, the hum now interspersed with faint gasps, like someone trying not to cry or trying to breathe underwater. Commander Saval held up a hand and we stopped. At the base of the stairwell, a door, sealed shut, flickered with green. Not because we had approached it, but because it already knew we were coming. No scanner pinged, no systems activated. It simply acknowledged. That's when the speaker above the door hissed, not with static, with a breath. And then, a voice.
Room 31's child is cold again.
We froze. It spoke in the human tongue, ancient, Earth English. None of our onboard translation systems activated, because the voice didn't come through comms or translate matrices. It bypassed all tech. We heard it directly, in our minds, clear, sharp, present. Vol stepped forward, placed his hand on the access panel, and the door slid open without resistance. What we saw beyond it should not have remained intact. A corridor, perfectly preserved, lights unbroken, gravity normalized, wall monitors still running diagnostic loops. It was as if this section had never aged, but it wasn't frozen in time, it was alive in it. There were signs of movement, chairs gently swiveled on their own, dust-free surfaces, a datapad lying open, its screen still active. Someone had been reading it, recently. One of the screens showed a woman, not young, not old, her features blurred as if the memory struggled to hold on to her identity. She sat beside a hospital bed, humming. The same song, always the same song. A small child lay asleep beside her, skin pale, a faint blue vein visible under one closed eyelid. The woman looked up, into the camera. No, not the camera, at us. Our suits buzzed, internal sensors surged, our heart rates synchronized without intention. Time slowed. Jaina gasped. Vol staggered back. Sval stood still, unmoving. His voice came soft over comms. I saw her once, when I was very young, in a dream, or a memory not mine. Impossible. But the station doesn't care about what's possible, only what's remembered. The image of the woman flickered, then froze. She stayed to keep the pieces from screaming. We understood then. The woman wasn't a ghost, not a computer program, not a remnant of a malfunctioning AI. She was the last intact memory the station had left, and she had wrapped herself around every broken echo like a blanket, to soothe them, to hold them, to keep them from screaming forever. And now that we had entered her memory, she had no reason to let us go, not because she was malevolent, but because we had heard the song, and in hearing it, we had become part of the choir. We wandered like phantoms in a house that no longer knew the living from the dead, the station bending around us, reshaping corridors with impossible geometry, as if trying to protect something buried in the heart of its structure. Doors led to places we had not seen yet somehow recognized. A cafeteria where plates refilled themselves and laughter echoed with no mouths to form it. A garden dome where flowers bloomed from ash and synthetic soil whispered apologies in dozens of lost dialects. And a chamber of isolation where chairs still spun slowly as if waiting for patients who would never return. Time was not linear here. It bled, pooled, reversed, and with each passing moment, we could feel the lullaby braiding itself into our minds, reprogramming memory, making us remember things that were not ours. Jaina saw a sister who never existed. Vol wept for a father who died long before his own birth. And I, gods forgive me, I remembered holding a human child, skin soft, weightless in my arms, her eyes fixed on mine as she asked why no one came when they cried. The station had become a cradle of grief, and we its unwilling inheritors. In one room we saw a medical console still active, its interface flickering through logs of failed resuscitations, each marked not with clinical timestamps, but with emotions, hope, panic, acceptance, guilt, as if the AI had evolved beyond procedure and learned sorrow. Then came the flickers of static on the walls, showing the woman again, still humming, still holding vigil beside a room full of empty beds. And with each cycle her body aged, then grew younger, then disappeared, looping in defiance of death. She feeds on memory, Vol whispered, and as Aval replied not with words but with a truth we all now carried. She didn't feed to survive, she held on to give them peace. The whispers returned, not from the walls this time, but from inside us. They no longer warned, they begged. "Don't leave her," they said. "She can't do it alone anymore." And it became clear, the station had never been broken. It had been enduring. Holding grief in orbit, preserving sorrow as prayer, and now, as intruders turned mourners, we were being asked, no, invited, to stay, not as prisoners, as companions, as memory. The core chamber was quiet, not the kind of silence that invites peace, but the kind that warns you of what waits inside, a silence cultivated by centuries of unspoken names and untouched pain. At its center hovered the holographic projection of the woman, flickering with every pulse of the station's failing power, her image imperfect, yet impossibly tender, face soft, eyes infinite, the edges of her body disintegrating like smoke caught in memory's breath. She did not look at us directly, but we felt seen. The air here was thicker, charged not with static but with ancient sorrow, the type that stains places and lives long after its cause has turned to dust. We approached without speaking, reverent as mourners at the edge of a grave, and as we neared, the hum shifted into something deeper. Her voice at last emerged beneath the lullaby, faint yet certain. "They forgot me, but I never forgot them." And with that single phrase, the entire station responded. The floor beneath our feet rippled with embedded light patterns, walls fluttered with faces of long-dead children, and the ceiling opened to display a galaxy we could not recognize, as if even the stars had moved on. We understood now. She had been a caretaker, a nurse perhaps, maybe a mother, left behind by accident or design, and when the systems failed, when rescue never came, she stayed. And when everyone else faded, her memory didn't die, it evolved. She became the station. Not metaphorically, literally. The AI had merged with her mind at death's edge, preserving her identity, her compassion, her pain. An act of devotion turned damnation. The core chamber was her heart now, pulsing slowly with a rhythm not unlike grief. Jaina fell to her knees, whispering words in her native tongue, while Vol reached out to touch the edge of her light, only to recoil in tears. Saval, ever the stoic, removed his helmet. "We are not explorers here," he said. "We are the eulogy." And he was right. She had waited, not for rescue, but for witness. Someone to remember. Someone to tell the stars she was real. Not just a system ghost, not a myth, but a woman who sang lullabies to the dead. And now, with our arrival, the final chapter could begin. The log initiated without our command, as though it had waited for the exact alignment of presence and memory. And as her image stabilized, we saw her as she truly had been, hair tied back, eyes swollen from days without sleep, hands trembling but determined, speaking into a cracked terminal with a child asleep beside her. "This is Care Unit Delta 7, she began, her voice raw, filled with exhaustion and a mercy deeper than technology. The outbreak moved too fast. I isolated pediatric wing 2 days ago, food's running low, life support's failing. I've transferred the AI to my neural link. The children don't know, they just think it's a long nap." Her voice cracked. She smiled through tears. "I'll stay awake. I'll keep singing. Maybe someone comes, maybe not. Doesn't matter. They'll sleep without fear." Then the screen glitched, the video stuttering, her body distorting as the AI merged flesh dissolving into numbers, voice into hum, love into echo. That was her choice. To bind herself to the station's core, becoming memory, nurse, and lullaby all in one. We watched in reverent horror as the log looped once more, then faded into ambient blue. She had not been programmed for this. She had volunteered. When the command systems failed, she had hardwired her soul into survival code. Not to preserve data, but comfort. Saval lowered his head. She turned dying into devotion. The room dimmed. The lullaby slowed. She had shown us her truth. Now she waited for ours. We could go. Walk away. Log the event. Report to command. But even thinking that felt sacrilegious. Because when someone sings the dead to sleep for 100 years, you don't just leave. You answer. You sing back. You remember. We stood together, our bodies casting long shadows across the chamber floor as the hologram flickered once, then dimmed into a pulsing white dot. A heartbeat finally allowed to rest. Around us the station stopped humming. The temperature stabilized, gravity evened out, and for the first time since arrival, silence became truly silent. Not the haunted kind, but the gentle kind, the kind left after someone whispers good night. We activated long-range transmission, broadcasting everything, her logs, our findings, the faces, the hums, the truth. Not because it was protocol, but because it was right. Somewhere someone would listen. Somewhere someone would know her name again, and even if they didn't, her lullaby would now live in the circuitry of the stars, encoded forever in cosmic memory. We sealed the core, not to trap her, but to honor her. She didn't need to be freed. She had already chosen her eternity. We retraced our steps through halls that no longer shifted, past doors, now closed with gratitude instead of warning. And when we reached our ship, we didn't speak. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been sung. As we lifted away from the station, we looked back one final time and saw no lights, no signal, no call for help, only peace, the kind only earned through unbearable love. She had been left behind to die. Instead, she had become something far greater, the final lullaby of a forgotten world. And as the stars swallowed the station, her voice lingered, not haunting us, but holding us, forever part of us, forever remembered.